Hi, this will be one of the last No Laurel, No Arrow ideas. I hope it's a little more comprehensible than the last one. I'm just going to do this, and then tomorrow I'll upload a little poem that I wrote when I lost all hope far before April 6th. So, the awesome Reddit post by Ben, I want to start there. It mentions a hook, and the hook is very important because there was a promise in Arrow, and I don't mean like the promise of being a good show, no. By having these characters, there was the promise of developing these characters. For example, in Smallville, you have the promise of Clark becoming Superman, and the promise that the friendship between Lex and Clark is going to just go to hell, and it's going to be personal, it's going to be painful. And they actually delivered on those promises, even if the Superman full costume was just like a frame at the very end of the series. But that's like what the promise. That's where the promise goes when you think about it. And with Arrow, the promise, it was not about Laurel being romantically involved with Oliver. It was about Laurel becoming a vigilante while Oliver already was one, and then they working together even if they have like problems between their non-vigilante personas. That was the promise, and it was accomplished in what just one episode, 2 episodes, and then they took it away. That's one hook that went to hell, because you have Black Canary, a non-hero persona in the pilot, and that there was a hook there for her, just as much as there was a hook for Oliver. Oliver's journey was the past, and Laurel could have been, and actually at some point was, in the present, so it was some sort of parallel. They were not supposed to be romantically involved. It was like just not a good character to kill. It was just... When we speak about canon, we don't want canon to be followed part by part. Most of the awesome things do not follow canon blindly. I mean, Batman the Animated Series managed to change things here, there. It had some episodes directly adapted from comic books, but it was its own being. There was no Jason, but you know, Tim had a lot of Jason within him, and it's considered one of the greatest superhero media ever. And just going to The Dark Knight, Young Justice, Teen Titans. Teen Titans is a very important example because it was a kids show. Most of the episodes were pretty wacky and just fun, yet it had an arc in each season, and those arcs were really well written, while and acknowledged the comics while not being at all like the comics. The Terror arc is probably the finest example, but the Cyborg arc and the end episodes, those are beautiful, and while not exactly like the comics, they acknowledge their existence. It's a very solid work of inspiration, and that's what we expected from Arrow. Inspiration that still felt like you were seeing other versions of the character, and while they were heroic and all of that. Now, there's a thing, there's a what you do, how you do it, and why you do it. And with Laurel's death, the problem is that the three things are pretty screwed up. What you do, you kill a canon character who was supposed to be there in the whole journey, not as a romantic interest necessarily, but as a companion, as her own hero. It was like a dynamic duo probably she will operate in her own ways and he will operate in his own way, and then at times they will come together. That's what we thought we were getting, even in the penultimate episode of season 2. And while it seemed in the 3 little episodes of season 3 that it was like a path to follow, then they just used her for a season, just a season of Black Canary. That's not cool. Then how you do it? If there was not the Sarah problem is a very big elephant in the room, because Laura revived Sarah, made everything to revive her, and just to think that Sarah is still there and she's not coming to any point in the past to protect a version of her sister, it feels wrong. It kinda ruins Lot to me, just as it ruins Arrow. But if there was no Sarah issue, if Laurel died like taking, what, 20 parademons or something more in line with the show, I don't know, against Slade Wilson, who is like damn bad as character, well, it will still feel odd, you know, but at least you could say, damn, she went down like a goddamn beast, no? I mean, I suffer a lot when characters like Rei Ayanami or Locon Stratos die on their respective animes. But, well, they go down like beautifully. So, if Arrow was well written, if we do not perceive holicity as a cancer that is eating away the whole structure of the show, if there was not the announcement that Felicity's mom is coming as a regular, with a lot of ifs, if Roy was still there, probably fighting with her and losing an arm, then you could have killed the Black Canary. Not what you should do, but in the right way you probably can do that. Just like it has happened in some series, in animated series and comic books. I mean, when Young Justice killed Wally, at least he went down like fighting incredibly, no? And then you have the why. You don't really have a why, because the writers expressed they didn't know who was going to die. They killed for shock value. The only problem of Daredevil season 1 is that they killed people for shock value, because The Walking Dead does it and Game of Thrones does that, but these shows are not like that. You don't get cool just by doing what the cool guys do, if you do not understand why they do it. When you are talking about a zombie apocalypse, I guess the logical way is that, yeah, not everyone makes it out alive. It's like a terror show, an horror show, and you need to kill to make some tension in the apocalypse, because the genre goes exactly in those lines. And with Game of Thrones, well, it's being a fantasy setting, but a very raw experience. Like, yeah, fantasy, medieval fantasy wasn't nice. It was not a nice time to be alive, and to play the war between kingdoms. So you get the awful aspects of that, of taking a little of reality into the fantasy, or vice versa. But with Arrow, shock value, I mean, why? You want shock value, I don't know, bring a powerful enemy, make a Slade come back with Captain Boomerang or things like that. You can't use a sleigh, well, you try to get a cool Komodo, things like that, like relevant things like that. That's a problem DC has that has nothing to do with the no lore and no arrows stuff. DC is like, they say they have a multiverse in their series and movies, but the series suffer from some sorts of embargo from the movies, and it happened back in the Justice League Unlimited days. I don't know why DC does that, but it does. So you have a what killing the Black Canary that is very hard to accomplish rightly, and you can't accomplish that organically because you have a lot of things that tell the people you are not respecting what this character should be. Then you have the how, and she does not die in an Aristea kind of way, like fighting a lot of guys and, you know, probably making some sort of poetry like for the temples of her gods, and then you have the why, and there is not a good why. It's like the writers are giving themselves up with her, and then there's the fact that if they wanted to give up on that character, they have a way out. They always had a way out to be respectful to the people expecting something of a Black Canary. They just need to send her away to the birds of prey. So if you want to uncrowd the cave, which is not a thing that is going to happen because they have now Mr. Terrific there, and again Felicity's mom. Really? How Guggenheim expects us to be okay with it? He kills a canon character, brings someone who is closely related to Felicity. That's the problem there. I once loved Felicity, but how can you think that's natural? It is not. Damn. But okay, so you have not the why, you do it wrong, and while you can technically do it, you need to execute it perfectly to make it stand. I don't know, like for example, Gwen's death in Amazing Spider-Man 2 was like the only part well done in the whole film. It's still very controversial at this point and in this age. So, No Laurel, No Arrow for me is like, these guys are screwing up the show. This is like the last and greatest fault they've done. You are not doing justice to these characters. You are not. That is not as subjective as you think it is. When you adapt something, or when you translate something, or appropriate something, there's some standards, and sometimes you probably don't make the characters justice, like in The Dark Knight. It's not perfect to make Batman's mythos justice, but you have a very strong theme here and a very strong director with a vision, and that remains. And you know, you are not losing that much here on this side. You have, again, other example from animations, Justice League, Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes. Those are not adaptations. You just come with a vision and mix things up and it works. But it's because you respect things. And these guys are not respecting Green Arrow as a character because he is not really heroic in his actions. He does the right thing, but not for the right reasons. And once more, it's a point of what, how, and why. And then you have like characters who are doing the best they can for the right reasons, in the right ways, by being quite human first and flawed, and then coming up, and then you kill them. And you pretend that you have a strong female character because everyone says and speaks and goes, oh yeah, she's so strong. I remember when I was an lister, the thing was like, oh my god, with Alice it is all show don't tell. Well, a lot of listeners say that. Now, how could they? Everyone tells things about her. It's not organic. You see? It's quite ironic, don't you think? Well, that's all. That's all. It will just be the little corny poem tomorrow, and I'll be done. You failed these characters, the fandom, the series. Producing team, writing team, you failed. You have failed. I can't do cool voices.